Well, good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. I am Will Cain, in for Tucker. Tonight, unfortunately, the world continues to flirt with World War III. This morning, according to the Associated Press, citing now a senior U.S. intelligence official, it said that Russian missiles, did the Associated Press, quote, crossed into NATO member Poland, killing 2 people.
The Pentagon says that they are tracking these reports, though not confirming anything right out of the gates here, though being very clear in saying that the United States stands by Article 5, which is an attack on one NATO country is an attack on all. And that is the concern here, guys. If these were Russian missiles, all we know right now is that these were missiles or rockets that landed in this farm that is along the border of Poland and Ukraine in Polish territories, killing 2. And if those were Russians, then that is the concern here, that the Ukraine war could extrapolate and become something bigger.
Whoa. Extrapolate into something bigger. Now, that wouldn't be the first time that a butterfly flapped its wings in Eastern Europe. I give you the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand for World War I buffs, and then a global war blew through America. So let's not extrapolate into a nuclear conflict this time without asking hard questions and asking for sober leadership. You heard in that report the mention of Article 5. That's a self-defense provision in the NATO Charter. Now, if invoked, it means world war against Russia. There's no doubt about it. And within minutes of that apparent strike in Poland, the government of Estonia, a NATO ally, made it clear that world war might result. Quote, Estonia is ready to defend every inch of NATO territory. Is America? Now, there are reports that instead of Article 5, Poland will actually look to invoke Article 4. Now, that would give them the power to ask NATO to come together for more support for Ukraine, more money, perhaps air and anti-air power over Ukraine. And in fact, the White House today asked Congress for another $37 billion. And of course, they'll get that for Ukraine. In other words, whoever was responsible for that missile strike in Poland, well, they're about to get even richer. Defense contractors. We don't know what happened yet in Poland. We don't know where those missiles came from. We don't know what was the intended target. We don't know if it was a mistake. Russia denies launching the attack. The Pentagon hasn't confirmed it even happened. Ukraine's President Zelensky, of course, has blamed Russia. But we should know the answers to these questions before we zombie walk into war. And these questions can't just be brushed away with Putin apologist or conspiracy theorist, the same way that was done with COVID origins, vaccine efficacy, lockdown efficacy, mask efficacy, or asking for details and facts around the attack of Paul Pelosi. More on that in a moment. Sadly, though, it's clear that our leadership in Washington is in no shape to handle any of this. Joe Biden had to skip dinner with the world leaders at the G20 summit last night in Bali, retreating back to his hotel room for undisclosed reasons. He was just on television before we broadcast, looking quite confused in front of television cameras tonight. It's probably all better, because if he were awake or lucid, he might verbally stumble us into Hiroshima. Words are power. Speaking of the power of words, like famous basketball dad LeVar Ball speaking it into existence, the head of the DHS suggested our border is secure. I guess attempting to speak that falsehood into existence as fentanyl flows across and kills thousands of Americans every month.
I've heard you and the Judiciary Committee recently in the summer testify that the border is secure. Secretary Mayorkas, do you continue to maintain that the border is secure?
Yes, and we are working day in and day out to enhance its security.
Alejandro Mayorkas, undefeated, never lost. In reality, more than 230,000 people crossed the border last month, compared to just 60,000 in October of 2019. Now, this is what's actually happening at the border, courtesy of Fox's Bill Malugin.
Take a look at this video we shot early this morning. This is drone video, thermal drone video, showing a single massive group of several hundred migrants crossing illegally into the Normandy, Texas area. Normandy is a tiny little town on the northern outskirts of Eagle Pass, and as you look at this, you'll see just a single file line of migrants wading across the Rio Grande and entering Texas. There's no resistance on either side of the border whatsoever, and once these migrants get to the U.S. side, they simply crawl under a fence that was put up by the state of Texas, and they walk into an area where they wait to be processed by Border Patrol. And then just a couple hours after that thermal video across town in Eagle Pass, we had another group of migrants crossing illegally into the Eagle Pass area. This at a private pecan orchard. A couple hundred single adults crossed in this area, with a Border Patrol source telling Fox News here in this Del Rio sector, just since October 1st, there have already been nearly 50,000 illegal crossings.
Totally unimpeded. How should Republicans respond to a crisis like this when the federal government, as led by the executive, Joe Biden, refuses to act? Well, today, it appears one Republican actually did something about it. Or did he? Texas Governor Greg Abbott seemed to declare an invasion is in progress at the southern border. Now, under the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of Texas, that move would authorize Texas to independently crush the surge of illegal immigrants without needing any approval from the federal government. Specifically, Greg Abbott's decision to invoke the invasion clause would allow Texas to deploy the National Guard and Texas DPS to remove illegal immigrants. But in his press release today, Texas Governor Greg Abbott said he would remove illegal immigrants to the border. Wait, to the border. Ken Cuccinelli, he's the former Attorney General of Virginia and a big leader in this push for states to declare an invasion, points out to the border is not deportation. It wouldn't stem the tide of illegal immigrants, and it doesn't invoke the full constitutional power of declaring an invasion. So, is it just a press release? Another example of words? Or is this potentially leadership? Republicans now have the House. At any moment tonight, it could be called that the Republicans now have a majority in the House. And then the question becomes, might they be able to lead in actually solving the border crisis? Or maybe returning our elections to pre-pandemic election laws? Or maybe even being that sorely lacking sober leadership we need before we extrapolate ourselves into World War III. For too long now, we've been gaslit, we've been shouted down, we have been censored. Our questions have been called conspiracies. While the English language is tortured to the point where you can no longer explain what is a woman or why we're going to war. We need leaders, honest leaders, of any party at any level of government to answer, to act, and to remember that they work for us.
Subscribe to the Fox News YouTube channel to catch our nightly opens, stories that are changing the world and changing your life. From Tucker Carlson Tonight.